on YouTube.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm Chair Mike Warren of the Licensing Subcommittee for the hearing of the Dodford Grange B&B. I have two councillors colleagues on the subcommittee, Councillor Sarah Peck and Councillors Kevin Parker. Can I just go through some housekeeping at the moment? We've got two members on the call that are actually within the council buildings in Daventry and are subject to fire alarm. Not expecting to go off, but if it does, we will have to stop the meeting as they will have to leave the building. We'll probably leave it half an hour. If we're unable to resume, then we'll have to reconvene the meeting at a date to be organised. Okay. If I can say that, just to let you know that this meeting is being recorded. And can I ask if you've got a mobile close by, if you could have that on silent, please. Can I just ask all members on the meeting to introduce themselves? I'll introduce as we go from the screen, top of my screen. Catherine.
My name's Catherine Holton. I'm a committee officer for Daventry District Council for this hearing.
Councillor Peck.
Councillor Sarah Peck, Daventry District Council.
Andrea.
Andrea Hill, Licensing Enforcement Officer, Daventry District Council.
Councillor Parker.
Kevin Parker, Daventry District Councillor.
Thank you. Louise.
Louise de Labloire, Legal Advisor to the panel.
Mr. Binnett.
Graham Binnett, resident of Dodford and currently chairman of the parish meeting.
Mr. Jackson.
So I'm Lee Jackson, I'm the co-owner of Dodford Grange.
Councillor Johnny Amos.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Johnny Amos, as you quite rightly said, I'm just an observer.
Thank you. And lastly, Mr. Robinson.
Yeah, Peter Robinson, resident of Dodford. Okay,
thank you very much indeed. This is a hearing to consider representation for the license for a premises license for Dodford Grange B&B. The proceedings will include all the paperwork, just summarised as follows. In the meeting, in a moment, the licensing officer will outline the application. The applicant will then make a statement, and those making the representations will then make their representation. All parties and the subcommittee will then have a chance to ask questions, and then both sides will then have the opportunity to sum up their case. So, Andrea, can I ask you to outline the application, please?
Chair, you need to ask if there are any interests from the members.
Yes, you're quite right. Members of the committee, do you have any interest to declare and the nature of such interests?
No interest to declare, Chair.
No interest to declare, thank you.
Thank you. Andrea.
Thank you, Chair. So, as you rightly say, this is a new application by Mr. Lee Jackson for Dodford Grange Bed and Breakfast, Main Road, Dodford, for a premises licence. The application has been advertised, and the applicant has supplied me with copies of the advertisement that were in the newspaper and the blue notice, and they were forwarded to you councillors yesterday. Can I ask for you to confirm whether or not you wish to proceed on the basis of those documents that you received?
Yeah, I'm okay. Councillor Parker?
Wish to proceed, Chair.
Councillor Peck?
Yes, fine, thank you.
Thanks. So all statutory authorities were served with copies of the application. During the consultation process, we received no representations from any of the statutory authorities. 17 representations were received from interested parties. They were local residents and the parish meeting. The concerns were in relation to all 4 of the licensing objectives: protection of children from harm, prevention of public nuisance, public safety, the prevention of crime and disorder. The concerns range from the length of the opening hours and licensable activities to the safety of the local roads. There's too many for me to mention right here, right now, as this is a summary. So I refer you to Appendix B of my report, where all of the concerns are outlined. The applicant is seeking alcohol sales and recorded and live music between 7 AM and 2 AM the following morning for guests. Hot food and drinks would be available on request between 11 PM and 2 AM, with the opening hours of an additional 30 minutes to allow for guests to finish their drinks and go to their rooms. A list of the proposed conditions put forward by the applicant are listed on Appendix A of my report. The police also agreed some conditions with the applicant prior to the application being made. They are included as the conditions on Appendix A. I'm sure that although the hours and activities appear extensive, the number of events and length of them would be limited to the bookings the business take from 1 week to the next. Not all of the activities would take place every day for the full extent of the hours being sought. When planning a premises licence, it does not grant any permission under the Town and Country Planning Act 1990. Therefore, the applicant has to be mindful of all the restrictions on both the licence and planning permission. The applicant could be liable to enforcement action under this legislation if there's any breach of any existing planning permission. There's a current planning application yet to be considered. This will be dealt with by the planning team separately. The premises licence application covers the bed and breakfast and 2 premises within the grounds of the house, plus the back garden. The planning application specifically extends to the holiday blocks and tents in a separate section of land. The applicant advises that if the format of the holiday let properties are approved or changed in the future, and they wish to include entertainment or alcohol on the whole site, they would apply for a variation of the premises licence, as is required by the licensing legislation. The conditions proposed by the applicant should address any issues raised. Councillors, you need to consider if the conditions proposed by the applicant are substantial enough, or if you need to consider further conditions. Any conditions need to be proportionate and appropriate to promote the full licensing objectives. Only those that are listed on Appendix B will be transposed onto the licence. You may approve the application, refuse the application, add or amend conditions, or limit licensable activities if you feel it is appropriate and necessary for the promotion of any of the full licensing objectives. That's my statement, but I do have a couple of questions, if I may, Chair, of the applicant.
Yep, okay.
So when I've looked at the application, after I'd written my report last week, I noticed that there's an area highlighted on some of the plans that was different to those on others. Can I ask Mr. Jackson to confirm which rooms on the ground floor are to be licensed and which ones are excluded? In particular, there's the garage and the playroom. Is it possible for you to confirm if they're excluded or part of the license?
They're excluded.
They are excluded. Okay, that clears that up. Thank you. And on the main map showing the planning department approval, there's a red area that has hash markings. Can you confirm that although it states Dodford Grange in that box where there's hash markings, that it is actually the car park area for the property, and that licensable activities are denoted by the red line around the boundary, which includes the Grange, the gardens, and the area to the left, which has the 2 properties where your family members live?
That's right, yes. It's just the red boundary area, that's all.
Okay, that's perfect. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Andrea. Colleagues, do you have any questions on Andrea's report?
No questions from me, Chair.
None from me, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Jackson, can I ask you to present your application, your case, please?
Yes. So as I'm sure you're aware, I'm not a planning or licensing consultant. So we took the decision straight away that we'd apply for this ourselves. You know, it's so you might not get such a polished report as you would normally expect in these applications. But I think if I go through everything as I see where we are, and then I'm more than happy to take any questions any of the councillors, the other people on the call are willing to take. So if I go back, I'll try and be as brief as possible. We moved to Dodford back in February 2017, the small family, and later with my in-laws to come and move. So we've been here for 21 years. Back in 2017, after 2/3 of the children had left home, my wife said, we're going to start doing a B&B. At the time, I got a full-time job. I said, okay, you can give it a go, but I'm not sure it'll be particularly successful. So I think May 17 was our first guest. Very quickly, we found that actually there was an awful lot of desire for accommodation in the area. So it sort of started off with business people, occasional tourists, and then we managed to get a bride. A bride came to stay. And she said, the night of her wedding, she said, oh, if I'd known about this, I could have booked beforehand. So very quickly what happened is we found that brides decided they wanted to stay with us before the wedding and after the wedding. So everything I'm going to talk about is around the bridal packages, but obviously we do operate accommodation for other business travellers, work people, whoever it may be. But if you just talk about sort of the normal target guest, so the bride will come and stay with us the night before her wedding. Invariably, she'll probably come here about 4 p.m. and she'll have a maid of honour, she'll have a mum or other friends. They'll normally either have a takeaway, go out for something to eat, have a few drinks. Next one, they'll get up. What they'll do, they'll have the hair and makeup from sort of 6:30 a.m, get ready, go to the ceremony, come back then, normally after midnight. Next one, have a breakfast and go away again. So what we tend to find is that's our, if you like, our target market. And that's what we've been doing now, say, for the best part of 3 years, albeit obviously the last 12 months, the whole hospitality has been pretty much dead. So say we've really evolved from where we first started to where we are now. Now, of course, I think we've had probably circa about 50 weddings to date. And what we found is when they come now, they say, so what we'd actually like to do is, can we have an evening meal? Can we have afternoon teas? And up to sort of probably past, 12 months, we said it's not really our thing. We thought about it more, and actually what we believe we can do is provide a really good service and actually give the brides just what they want, because they come here, they tend not to want to go out now. If they can have everything in the one place, they're quite happy. So what we're basically looking to do, and part of the reason for this license is we want to do afternoon teas, we want to do evening meals. I think what we look at the moment, we've got 100 plus brides booked with us up to 2023, and we can certainly see that there's an awful lot of demand for this going forward into the future. So if I look at basically where we are now, why do we want the license? Like I say, we want to diversify a little more, but also expand on what we can offer. Now, we've been pretty much doing this the last few years in terms of the bridal packages. We've had no issues at all. Literally, there's not been one incident in all the years we've been doing it. But we think actually having a license, it basically conveys a more professional approach and gives us the ability to probably manage and control guest behaviour if needs be. Now, looking at the objections, so obviously we've got no desire to upset the residents of Dodford, of which we ourselves are members. So we've decided we'd like to scale back and basically hope we can afford them greater comfort as to what we're trying to achieve. So whilst we originally asked for longer hours, the intention there was basically for the guests that would come back from the wedding and perhaps just want a nightcap, a last drink before they all retire to bed and get up the next morning. Now, I think it's probably clear this gave the village the wrong impression entirely, and I can appreciate this may have exacerbated any fears of the unknown. So basically I want to change our proposals a little from what we first asked. Now, if I read through them, I don't know if Andrea, if you want to make any notes, but basically what we're looking at now is saying, okay, any live music, indoors or outdoors, we'll cut that back to 10 p.m. any day of the week, so no later than 10 p.m. Recorded music, again, outdoors up to 10 p.m. and indoors up to midnight. Now, again, when we say indoors, this will tend to be in what we've got our sort of snooker room area. So it is actually very contained. You can't hear anything from outside. Late night refreshments, again, indoors, outdoors, no later than midnight. So not the 2 a.m. we looked at previously. And then supply of alcohol on the premises, we're looking from 7 a.m. to midnight. And again, with the premises opening date then from 7 AM to midnight 30. The other thing I think is probably a very important point is we want to limit the number of people at any one time. Now, in most cases, this is going to be probably 10, 15, 20, 25 people. On the odd occasion where you might get a summer afternoon when people want to come and say, have a chat with the bride before the wedding, we'd actually think it could be a little bit more. So we'd like to put in a maximum of 40 people at any one time. So no more than that on site. Again, I think you've probably seen we've got 5 letting bedrooms. So we tend to have 10 guests stay. And again, the crux of this one is the only people that will be on site will be the guests and the bona fide guests of such guests. So we're not open to the public. You have to have pre-booked. And by the very nature of what we do, people tend to book well in advance and we sort of know what's happening. So, you know, it wouldn't be a case of that someone will ring up today and say, can I stay tomorrow? And can I have 30 people with a band outside until 10 PM? That's just not the way we work. It is literally, 12, 18 months, 2 years in advance for the wedding parties that this will happen. So we know what's going to happen. We know when it's going to happen. And so everything is pretty much pre-booked. Now, again, I'm talking a lot about weddings. It may be the case that we do have a birthday celebration. Again, what's happened up to now is we've had brides will come and stay. We've had 3 occasions where they've come back for a wedding anniversary, a 60th birthday party. We've even had a 90th birthday celebration. And again, on that occasion, we had one guy outside with his little amp and his guitar playing songs from the 60s because that's what the woman liked. Again, we're looking for the afternoon teas. Maybe, it could be, a lady with a cello or a harp or whatever. We're going to be quite diverse of what we can offer. In terms of what we do, it's all very well controlled. It's certainly not a festival that we're trying to promote. I think one of the ones where they thought we could be doing Glastonbury. That's absolutely not what we want to do. What we provide is a really good service. Again, our reviews you can see, but what we're trying to do is, like I say, expand a little what we can offer and basically give people what they want. There's a need, there's a desire for it, and we think we can meet that need. And like I say, I guess when I saw all the objections, it was very disappointing. I think they're a mix of people who are genuinely scared of what we might be doing, which I want to allay those fears. But again, some of the objections probably, I don't think necessarily, they're probably a little bit vexatious, I have to say. 16 objections, and our door has been open from day one. No one has ever come and knocked on our door and asked us what we're doing, despite us giving that offer there. I have my mobile phone number. Clearly, at the moment, we can't have people around the house, but certainly my door is always open for any concerns whatsoever. That's basically to say where we think we are, but again, I can answer any questions that any of you may have.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Jackson. What I'll ask you to do further on in the meeting is actually make a summing up as we go forward. If I could ask Mr. Minnitt if you would like to address the committee, please.
Sure, thank you. Yeah. Good morning, everybody, again. As you now know, my name is Graham Minnitt. I'm chairman of Dodford Parish Meeting, which is a small village of just 67 properties and about 134 residents. Not a very big place at all. I must state, as we've written in the notes, there is absolutely nothing personal against Mr. or Mrs. Jackson, because it could be understood that they may have their reasons, which he's just outlined, for wanting to hold events live, involving live or recorded music indoors or out, with a licensed bar until the small hours of the morning. However, this application has actually polarized things and unified the village, as nothing has ever done before. I mean, I've been here for almost 40 years now, and there's an enormous groundswell of opinion about this, all of it negative. One of the main reasons is any private functions previously held at the Dodford Grange B&B, whether indoor or outdoor, have already impinged to a very large extent onto the rest of the village. This could be gauged by the submissions from residents in all parts of the village, whose lives would be greatly affected if this application were to be granted. The opposition to this has been almost unanimous, because due to the location of the bed and breakfast on the rim, overlooking the bulk of the village below, and with the other village properties either adjacent to or facing them, there's already a noise and disturbance problem whenever a private party is held on the premises, some of which have included firework displays. Indeed, local neighbours, which you'll see from the previous submissions, have complained of not being able to, sorry about that, people, of not being able to sleep until the small hours due to the disturbance. Now that is small private events being held, we think, indoors, and people can't sleep then till the small hours of the morning. And that's before any regulation or any licenses being granted for. In addition, what puzzled everybody is currently it's a 5 letting room B&B. The license application is for residents. I'm sorry about this. That's an outside line coming in. The license application is for residents and their bona fide guests. What sort of events involving alcohol sales and live music are planned for this B&B establishment, and why would their transient B&B guests want such events? The business as a B&B has proved quite popular and has good reviews. The up to 10 guests have access to free parking, a snooker table, a bar, and a terrace overlooking the village. Almost by definition, people who are staying in B&Bs are either attending functions in the area, they're on holiday, or they're working away from home. It would seem to all of us that none of these transient residents would have their own guests in the area, or the need for live music and late night alcohol sales. Access and parking would also be a major issue because there's been no maintenance to the verges of this property over the years, and there is very limited parking on site. Parking in the single track road, which is the main access from the A45, could cause major access and nuisance problems and could potentially pose a safety hazard in the event of emergency vehicles needing access to the village. As a safety issue, the village has no footpaths, a 20-mile-an-hour speed limit due to the narrowness and the danger of the roads, and a well-known nursery school, which is a very short distance from the B&B. There's a constant delivery and collection of small children, some with additional needs and disabilities, from early morning until evening, and the children are often taken for walks around the village. Due to the erosion of a once existing footpath along the front and side of this property, all pedestrians entering or leaving the village to the A45, and therefore local bus services, must by necessity walk in the road, which is wet, muddy, and has a blind and very dangerous bend already. Any more traffic would make it considerably more so. The residents of our village bought their properties because of the appeal of village life. They all have, in our view, a right to what can be construed as normal peace and quiet in their lives. Dodford Gray's B&B is not in any way remote from the village, but ideally situated to cause the maximum amount of intrusion. The 2 village wedding and function venues, from which Dodford Grange are aiming to gain much of their clients, both had restrictions placed upon them when they were first granted their planning permissions. To avoid the peace and tranquility of the village being disturbed by unnecessary noise and traffic, Dodford Manor customers must approach and depart from the A45 entrance only, and Dodmore House clients from the A5 only, thereby ensuring that the village is left undisturbed. No traffic was ever to go through the village. Since this application has been submitted, Dodford Manor Wedding Venue, which has been until now a main sponsor of the B&B, has withdrawn their approval and recommendation to any of their guests for the use of Dodford Grange B&B. Dodford Manor Wedding Venue, I must say, has always worked in cooperation with the residents of the village since opening in 2012, thereby ensuring that its activities respect the peace and tranquility of all their neighbours, and it works very well. The owners of this very well-respected venue have not taken this action lightly, but felt obliged to do so since they feel strongly that they are now no longer able to refer their clients to a business which they know will have such an adverse effect on the whole village. All these views are as submitted to us by the residents of Dodford, who are all consulted on the matter, either 100% of them, either electronically or in writing. And due to many of the residents not being conversant with virtual meetings such as this, we've been asked to represent their views. I think you're able to see from the written submissions just how great is the genuine fear of our residents if this were to be accepted, as it would forever alter everyone's lives. For all of these reasons, Dodford Parish Meeting on behalf of their residents, oppose this licence application in the strongest possible terms. And that's what we have, and I'll take any questions now or later.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Munir. Mr. Robinson, would you like to say something?
Only to endorse what Graham has already said. And as much as Mr. Jackson said, he wants to increase numbers to the venue, which will only make matters worse for all the points that Graham's covered. And similarly with the application seems a little unnecessary in as much that, as Mr. Jackson has said, they've been offering drinks and selling drinks and whatever for the past 3 to 4 years since they opened. Well, 2017, sorry. So as I said, I can only endorse what Graham has said. The only other point is the thing to point out is that, as Mr. Jackson said, he does point out there is a terrace. Now, I don't know whether a terrace, whether that's indoors or outdoors, but it's usually the source of whatever function is going on at Dodford Grange. So the business about things being kept indoors could be construed as being a little, well, you take that with a pinch of salt. It's the thing is, as Graham has said, it would cause an increase in numbers, an increase in traffic, and thereby further destroy access to the village and the enjoyment of the village. And those residents just down the road at 1, 2, 3 The Green, especially already, endure some disruption when the functions or whatever activity is going on at Dodford Grange. As I said, it just seems a little extraordinary that we want to, that Dodford Grange wants to more or less become a hotel of some note. And
what I recommended earlier may allay those fears an awful lot. I mean, I guess, Graham, you may want to go back and say, you know, or people actually watch this link to see what we're actually trying to do now. I think what I want to point out is, like I say, for the past 4 years, and I probably should have said it in my earlier statement, is we allow people to bring their own drinks. So when they book to stay with us, we say there's a fridge in the bar you can use. You know, bring your own prosecco, because many times they'll have a drink the night before the wedding. They'll have a drink when they're getting ready during the morning. You know, if they have a takeaway, they may have, you know, whatever they may have. So up until now, they bring their own drinks. You know, okay, you know, as responsible people, I mean, we've never had an issue. People don't tend to get drunk on the night before their wedding, and neither do they the morning. They can sit outside, say in the summer months, literally having a glass of wine. It's not a case. It's not a nightclub. It's not a, like I say, some wild events place. But people can bring their own drinks. Similarly, they can sit outside and they can play music. So all these things that we're asking to be licensed, they can do already. But with the license, what we can do is we can, if needs be, control it better. So again, you know, when I'm saying we're asking to be licensed up till midnight, so should a guest go to a wedding and they come back and say, can we come back and have a few drinks? We can actually say, unfortunately, no, the terms of our license states that we cannot serve you alcohol after midnight. So I say it's really just trying to, I guess, become more professional. Again, there won't be any more people than there is already. You know, we're not doing anything there. I mean, dispute certain things now about the footpaths. I mean, it's not our responsibility. Anything is our responsibility. We're happy to do. I don't believe in the 21 years I've lived here, there's been a footpath past our house. You know, I mean, yes, it probably would be a good idea, but that's not for me. That's, you know, for the council to decide themselves whether that's when they put in the highways. But I think, let's say, and again, Peter, I'm really sorry, I'm not sure exactly where you live, but as far as I'm aware, like I say, we've not had one complaint in 21 years. Now, yes, we'll have definitely had some parties in that time, but no one's come and knocked on my door. You know, the police, residents say, you know, turn the music down, we don't like it. Everyone has parties. There's been bonfire parties down the village, fireworks. And actually, again, I don't actually ever remember having a firework display at my house. They're too expensive, you know, for a start. So I say I'll probably dispute. I mean, maybe it's a case of people think things have happened, they haven't. But say there's zero evidence to say that we've ever been any sort of nuisance. And again, I reiterate, our door is always open. My telephone number, anyone can contact me.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Jackson. Mr. Robbins, did you put your hand up to say that you wanted to say something?
Well, I just wondered why Mr. Jackson made mention of a bar. There's in fact a games room and bar which appears on the TripAdvisor website as a promotional aspect. You know, you can come and enjoy the games room and the bar. So, but a bar surely has drinks. There's no stipulation in the promotional material or bring your own drinks. It just says, great, you know, we've got a bar, snooker room, you know, and all manner of things. And the increase in numbers, which Mr. Jackson said that there will now be increase in numbers, then when, if at a later date, as he has mentioned, the campsite to the west, if that goes ahead, well, obviously numbers will increase, or the facility can accommodate more people.
I just say that that's
yeah, I understand that. Yes, I do understand that, Chair. Thank you.
It's part of the planning application, yes. And it's absolutely nothing to do with this particular hearing.
I understand that. I'm sorry. Yep. Okay, but as I said, it's just the reference to the bar, which was May 2020 TripAdvisor response. Had a wonderful time, and I'm sure they do. And I'm sure the service is fantastic. But as I said, just any increase in activity will have an adverse effect on that area.
Okay, thank you very much.
The village in general. I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Robbins. Yeah, Mr. Minette.
Yeah, just a couple of points to clarify there. I know Peter Robinson mentioned the effect of the noise on the cottages adjoining the piece of land which is in question now. Yes, they have put their objections in writing for the noise. It isn't only the ones adjoining the property. We've heard from villagers across diagonally opposite the other side of the village who also have been disturbed by the noise. The sound, unfortunately, from where this place is situated, travels greatly. The reason also you haven't had people knocking on your door, I think they're a bit nervous to do so. I can name the residents of 1, 2, 3, 4, a house opposite the church, a house down the road from the church. They've all said the same thing. They're fed up with the sheer noise coming from the property on the occasions they have private functions. But nobody has seen fit to go up the road there to go knock on the door and say anything about it. That's probably why you haven't heard anything. If you talk to them all individually, I can furnish you with all the names and telephone numbers. They will say the same thing. I think they were just being polite and reserved.
Okay, thank you. And finally, Mr. Jackson, would you like to say anything before I open it up to my colleagues?
No, so hopefully I'll say I'm as honest and transparent as I can possibly be, which I think are important traits in your personal and your business life. Like I say, what we're trying to do is I don't think what the villagers think we're trying to do. And I say, and with the new conditions I'm proposing, I'm hoping that will alleviate the concerns. But again, and I can't reiterate enough, please come and talk to me. I mean, Peter, again, I say, if you want to come to the end of the fence, I can talk you through everything we're trying to do with this application and others, and hopefully alleviate everyone's fears.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Parker, have you any questions?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I notice now the music is going to cease outside at 2200 hours, which has been agreed. What happens if it's raining and things like that? How do you have outside music?
So again, obviously, what we'll tend to do, say it'll be wedding parties that are pre-booked. Now we'll know that Mr. and Mrs. Smith, they want an afternoon tea on the day before they get married. If the weather's inclement, they'll come inside. But because we are, our relationships with the bridal parties are fairly close. I mean, what we do is we start their wedding. It starts with us and it finishes with us. When they leave after their post-wedding breakfast. So we would basically say, if the weather's inclement, we do something different. We come back indoors. Again, and again, because with the license, we have to be on site if we sell alcohol. Again, that's all part and parcel of managing the whole process better.
Right. See, there's no marquee outside.
No.
Right.
No. What we plan to do, this area is actually, I guess if we talk, so where the house is now, and I don't know if you've got any maps in front of you, so it'll be to the side of the house where we've got a large willow tree. So if we do the afternoon teas, it'll be in that area. So again, because my mother-in-law lives with us, and again, we're mindful of her needs as well. So we keep everything to the side of the house, which is well away from the next door neighbours. And again, incidentally, our immediate neighbours at number one are the one people that actually wrote in favour of what we're doing, because we've talked everything through with them. We've explained what we're trying to do. Say it's to the one side of the house that we'll probably have, you know, if it is an afternoon tea outside, again, and I honestly can't imagine, we may have probably 2 or 3 bands a year, you know, so if it needs be, you know, we can do temporary event notices for that type of thing, you know. We never envisage having, like I say, a 5-piece band on site belting out loud music till the early hours. It will be something to say it's probably a little bit more refined and, you know, more that complements a wedding celebration or a birthday party or a wedding anniversary, that type of thing.
And do you think it's necessary to serve alcohol? Is that now till 12 o'clock? Is that what you said?
Well, if you're inside, I say in most cases it will be, if they're having an evening meal, it's probably going to be a lot earlier. What we tend to find is the brides will stop up till about 11:30, then they'll be off to bed. Then they're up next morning very, very early. So we felt that sort of midnight was probably, maybe 2 a.m. was very late, but certainly midnight probably isn't unrealistic in these terms.
And that's for inside?
Just inside, yeah.
And one other question I'd got, Chair, it wasn't to Mr. Jackson, but the chair of the parish meeting referred to problems with noise and things like that. I wondered if anyone at Daventry can confirm if there's been any complaints to the environmental about noise, if they're reluctant to go and ask Mr. Jackson.
I think on the papers, there's been no representation from the statutory consultees, of which the EHO is one, along with the police. So as far as I'm aware, we've had no objections at all from the environmental health. Is that correct, Andrea?
Certainly, we haven't had any representations. They did have an opportunity to put any comments forward, and I can only assume the fact that they haven't put any representation in means that they've got little or no information to share in this process. So that would indicate that they don't have a lot of information about any noise nuisance at the present time.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Mr. Minnick, you want to just coming in at this point?
Only a quick one on that. I'll reiterate what I said earlier on. I personally, and most of the people in the village, have a philosophy of whatever you do in life, never ever fall out with your neighbours, because it makes life untenable for everyone. And people have tolerated it, thinking, well, it'll soon be over. It'll hopefully be over by 2 in the morning, whatever, and hopefully it'll be a few weeks till the next one. Nobody has made a thing of it, or certainly not complained to the authorities, because that's a path down the road to darkness. I think most people feel that. You don't want to fall out with your neighbours. So they've tolerated it up until now.
I understand what you're saying. Unfortunately, we have to go by, evidence complaints, and it's just the way the system works, unfortunately. But I understand where you're coming from. Councillor Peck, have you any questions?
Can I just, thank you, Chair. Can I just clarify with Mr. Jackson about I was concerned about this, the registered guests or guests thereof, because initially there was no limit on all guests thereof that could be there. So can you just clarify that you're now saying a maximum of 40?
Yes. Maximum of 40. But say, I can't imagine that be rarely the case where you'll have that many people. Like I say, we'll talk about what it is that we actually offer. Say it's not huge events. It's not massive birthday parties. They tend to be a lot smaller. So we have 5 bedrooms where people stay. I'd say probably on average it's going to be 20 to 25 on average. But there may well be occasions, on a warm evening where they might decide they might want more people. But again, it's all agreed in advance. No one just turns up that they didn't know about or we didn't know about.
Thank you.
That it? Yeah. Thank you. I just have a couple of questions. You've got 5 bedrooms for the B&B. Are they all double bedrooms?
Yes. Yeah.
So that's basically 10 people that
Yes.
will be residents.
Yes. And as well, just to add, the 6th bedroom is where we live as well. So it's all on the first floor. So bedroom 1 is us.
Okay. I just wondered whether one was a family room or something like that. But
No,
they're just all doubles.
Basically, so probably four doubles and a twin in our room.
So okay, so we were basically talking about 10 residents.
Yeah.
And then the guests of each individual or each room of the
yeah, it's going to be basically it's a party. So all 5 lecture rooms is one party. It's not like individual. If people do book into the B&B, Silverstone, for example, is another one. So we'll have normally 5 separate rooms. Now we won't be doing outside music or anything like that for those type of events. Yes, we may well sell them. If they want an evening meal, a glass of wine or whatever. But say it's just really for the events where it could be one party that occupy the whole house and their guests thereof.
Yeah, I'm just sort of relating it through to the events. You're going to start evening meals for the wedding. So how many? And I presume they will be in the snooker room.
No, it's the dining room off there. So if we're doing evening meals, we believe we can cater about 16 people indoors for an evening meal. That's like if it's outdoor, at the moment, what we've seen last time, a 1-pot chili, for example, we can actually serve that outside potentially. So you can have more people outside.
Right.
But predominantly, yeah. So if it's
I'm thinking about if it's inclement weather and you booked a curry or something outside, when you've suddenly got to debark indoors and it's catered for 30, 40 people outside, you're not going to get them indoors.
Well, actually, the snooker room can take it. What we can do is we can actually cover the table and place things on there. But again, because we say we have a very close relationship with the bridal parties, we do say, yes, if the plan is we'll all be sat outdoors, or you'll be sat outdoors rather, till 10 o'clock having your chili con carne. If the weather's bad, clearly we can't do that one. And again, what you find is the guests of our guests will be saying probably Staverton, or the other local B&Bs as well. So again, we can always work around things, but say it's not. I guess we're not putting on an event like at the NEC where you've got thousands of people turning up. Everything needs to be regimented. We are, we're still, we're family run at the end of the day, but we have a close relationship with all the people that stay with us.
Right. So you mentioned a maximum of 40 people. You'll be happy to have that as a condition.
Absolutely.
Okay. Just going now to the music. You say amplification outside, and I'm kind of concerned that it's noise level, basically, with the numbers and the type of music that is planned. Can you just give me a little bit more
elaborate
on
what we tend to know is we have a Bose speaker, which is sort of so big, so you can put that outside, you can put your Spotify and play your music. If you have that at the side of the house, my mother-in-law at the other end of our house cannot hear that one. So we're not talking about big amplified speakers that can boom across the village. You cannot hear, if you're at the side of the house, you cannot hear it from the other side of our house. And again, I spoke to Ray King, I went to the licensing people, the police, environmental, and said, even indoors, because Ray said, well, what if people have got the windows open? You can't hear it. You say the speaker we're talking about is literally, if you can see, sort of so big. It only has a certain wattage level on there. It's not, it's not what you'd say at raves or whatever.
Okay, so is it on the lines of background music that you're looking for, or are you actually looking to have a band? Because my view is, if you're having a band, they will have their own PA and their own speakers. They will turn up and they will set up. is this the sort of thing that you're expecting?
No, not at all. Like I say, I think probably, again, I'll sort of go back to where I started. I thought I'll put this application together myself. It's a learning experience, you know, you can pick things up. So I look at the form and I say, I spoke to various bodies, and you know, the police being one of them, the police came around the house, they had a look, and they said, well, if you apply for this, this and this, you know, you kind of covered into what you do. Because, you know, I really don't envisage ever having a band on site. Like I say, you might have one guy with his guitar, if someone so chooses that. So I think probably that the band side of things, say it may sort of convey the idea that we're doing something different to what we actually want to do. But no, we would not ever have, say, a 4-piece band, you know, the Beatles, for example, something similar. That's not the plan at all. That's not the plan. Literally, the outside music will be, you know, the bride might have her favourite 20 songs with her bridesmaids, so they can sit outside if the weather's nice, you know, having a quiet drink before her wedding. It's that type of thing that we're trying to do, not like I say, like a live music in what you'd normally go to, you know, a pub garden, for example. It's not that type of thing.
Would you be happy to have just purely acoustic music outside with amplified background music?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Because I think that would probably help, relay or allay sort of concerns of the village of loud music and that going on to the early hours of the evening. And acoustic music is acceptable, you know, in the garden. I feel, but this is something that you've got to consider yourself. But and then
no, absolutely.
And
like I say, probably the word band may, you know,
not very loud, and that just, you know, supplements the conversation that people will be having and enjoying a drink in the garden.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, and you're happy with that?
Yes.
Okay. Andrew, did I see you with a right? Yes, you've got your hand raised.
Thank you, Chair. It was in relation to the discussions around 40 being the guest of guests invited to any of the events potentially coming up. My question is, does that 40 include the people that are living and working at the bed and breakfast, or would that be 40 guests or guests of guests? So very confusing.
I thought was our guest of guests. But in terms of who lives here, myself, my wife, my son, and my mother-in-law are the only 4 people on site. I mean, we would need help, you know, if we're doing sort of catering. So there might be a 5th person as well. So I was kind of thinking 40 guests of guests, but again, we're flexible. We're flexible.
So that basically includes everybody on site.
I thought it was 40 plus ourselves. I mean, I'll tell you what we're actually thinking of doing is probably, we're thinking sort of, you know, 6 lots of 6 if there was tables outside, for example. You know, so we're probably thinking 36 people as an absolute maximum. So if you limited that to the 5 of us, maybe 36 is fine. Okay. Again, I say, I'm just really sort of want to, if you like, future-proof ourselves. If we have one event where someone turns up with 37 people, I'm not going to get a knock on the door saying you've got one too many. You know, the vast majority is going to be probably in around 20, that sort of area.
Right, yeah.
But say, I do want to make sure that I'm not breaking any rules and keeping within what we said we'd do, which I think is obviously relatively important.
Okay. Is that okay, Andrew? Are you okay with that? You've got that number-wise down. So what have we ended up number-wise with?
So do you want to say 30? Do you want to say 36 of guests and guests of guests? I think that will probably.
That's it. Right. Okay. Right. Okay. I'm happy with that. Does anybody else wish to make a comment?
Only as I said before about increasing in activity. 36 people, that probably equates to 18 cars, plus the cars of the staff, which is probably another 4. So we've got 22 cars parked in an area that accommodates 7 cars, I think. So where are all the others going to go? Simply that, and they go down the lane, and that's it. Which is what Graham and the residents are on about, the disruption to that particular area. the greatest thing is trying to get an ambulance or an emergency vehicle down there, let alone any disabled people. And I do notice from the application, there's no mention of accommodating disabled people. It's just an exacerbation. It's an increase in current activity, which, as Graham has already said, is tolerated. Because we all want to get on, and we want Mr. Jackson to carry on, and make a living, which is fine. But it's just this question of an increase in activity, which is going to worsen the condition. It's not going to be good. Okay. And the thing is, if, as Mr. Jackson implies, that things are jogging along quite nicely as it is, but we just want to be more professional, well, why is there a need to apply for a license anyway if the residents are bringing their own drinks in and they're not serving drinks? I don't know why. Oh, okay. I say it's just, as I said, that word that very often is an increase in activity, which will be detrimental to the village.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Councillor Parker, do you have any following questions at all?
No, I'm fine now, Chair. Thank you.
Okay.
No, thank you, Chair.
Okay, and finally, Mr. Jackson, would you like to sum up, please?
I think I probably said that a few minutes ago. So again, we're not trying to do anything detrimental. I'm more than happy to work with the village in anything they want. Again, I guess I feel probably quite upset that people feel they can't come and knock on my door. And I say, probably in 20 years, I'm sure we've had the odd party, probably my kids as well, with birthday parties that may have caused the odd occasion. But again, if that's probably once or twice in 20 years, that's all it's been. And certainly since we've been doing the B&B, we have no opportunity for any personal parties. That's it's probably changed our life quite a lot as well. I don't think I'm a bad person. You can certainly come and knock on my door anytime.
Okay, thank you.
What we're trying to do, we think, is a good thing.
Thank you very much. Before we actually just end this part of the meeting, Andrew, can I just ask you to confirm what conditions we've now agreed? So when we adjourn, that we're all conversing with exactly what Mr. Jackson is actually happy with, in addition to what he's already agreed on Appendix A of the papers.
Just bear with me a second. I'm just looking back on my notes.
Yeah.
So I've got live music outside until 10 p.m. and inside until midnight. I've got recorded music.
Sorry, Andrea, not quite. So the live music indoors or outdoors. So
it's 10 p.m.
10 p.m. is either or, yeah, just to make it simple.
Yeah. And then recorded music, that's where it's midnight indoors and 10 p.m. outside. So it's all contained. Then late night refreshment from 11 p.m. until midnight, because 11 p.m. is the starting point for late night refreshment. Opening times 7 till midnight 30, with alcohol sales up to midnight. And then we've got 36 as the number of guests or guests of guests to be on site at any given time.
There also there was agreement of acoustic music only in the garden and background amplification, amplified background music only in the garden.
Yeah, that's on another page.
Yeah. Okay, so we're all happy with that. Okay, right. What we'll do now, Mr. Peter, Mr. Muir, and Mr. Jackson, I will put you in the waiting room, and we will now discuss the application, and we'll call you back in when a decision has been